This film was 9 hours long. The studio cut it down to just over 2. And most of the original footage was destroyed. This is the documented history of Greed. Greed was released in 1924 and directed by Erich von Stroheim. It was produced and distributed by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Today, the film is remembered as one of the most extreme examples of studio interference in silent-era Hollywood. The original version assembled by von Stroheim no longer exists. What survives is a drastically shortened cut that only partially reflects the director's intent. The film was based on the 1899 novel McTeague by Frank Norris. Von Stroheim aimed to create an unusually faithful adaptation. Rather than simplifying the story for mainstream audiences, he attempted to preserve its bleak tone, psychological detail, and social realism. His approach conflicted with the commercial expectations of the studio system. Production began in 1923. Von Stroheim insisted on shooting on real locations in San Francisco and Death Valley rather than on studio sets. This decision significantly increased costs and extended the production schedule. He sought authenticity, even when it created logistical challenges. Filming in Death Valley proved especially difficult. Cast and crew worked in extreme heat conditions. The commitment to realism reflected von Stroheim's belief that cinema should document physical and emotional truth rather than theatrical artificiality. When principal photography concluded, von Stroheim assembled an initial cut reportedly running between 8 and 9 hours. Contemporary accounts from studio executives and crew members confirmed that this version was extraordinarily long. It was never intended for standard theatrical release in that form, but it represented the director's complete narrative structure. Von Stroheim then prepared a revised cut of approximately 6 hours. This version reduced some subplots while preserving the novel's core themes: obsession, moral decay, jealousy, and the destructive influence of money. Even at 6 hours, the film far exceeded normal exhibition limits. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer executives were alarmed. The studio had recently consolidated under new management and prioritized efficiency and profitability. A 6-hour film would require multiple intermissions, limited daily screenings, and reduced ticket turnover. From a business perspective, it was impractical. Studio head Irving Thalberg ordered further reductions. Von Stroheim resisted but was contractually bound to MGM. The film was taken away from him during the editing process. Additional cuts were made without his full approval. The final theatrical release of Greed ran approximately 140 minutes. Entire subplots were removed. Secondary characters were eliminated. Narrative transitions were simplified. The result was a coherent but significantly compressed version of the story. Most critically, the removed footage was not preserved in full. During the 1920s, studios did not prioritize archiving unused material. Film stock was expensive and storage space was limited. Discarded negatives were often destroyed or recycled. The original long versions of Greed were broken down. Large portions of the cut footage were reportedly melted for silver recovery or otherwise disposed of. No complete print of the 8 or 6-hour versions is known to survive. The released version of Greed received mixed reviews in 1924. Some critics praised its intensity and realism, while others found it excessively dark. Commercial performance was modest. Over time, however, Greed developed a reputation as a masterpiece of silent cinema. Film historians began to reassess von Stroheim's ambitions. The scale of the original cut became legendary. Greed was described as one of the greatest films never fully seen. In the late 20th century, restoration efforts attempted to reconstruct Greed as closely as possible to von Stroheim's intentions. Using surviving still photographs, production notes, and continuity scripts, archivists created an expanded restoration. This version integrates still images to represent missing scenes and restore narrative flow. Despite these efforts, the original moving footage remains lost. The restoration serves as an approximation rather than a recovery. The emotional pacing and visual rhythm of the 9-hour cut cannot be recreated. The case of Greed illustrates the tension between artistic ambition and industrial filmmaking. Von Stroheim pursued realism and narrative depth at a scale incompatible with studio economics. MGM prioritized practicality and profitability. Unlike films lost to accidental fires or decay, Greed was reduced through deliberate editorial decisions. The destruction of the original footage was a consequence of commercial logic rather than disaster. The losses shaped von Stroheim's legacy. He became known as a visionary director whose ambition exceeded the limits of the studio system. After Greed, he struggled to maintain creative control in Hollywood. Today, Greed survives in a shortened but powerful form. The existing version is widely available and studied in film schools, yet it represents only a fraction of what was originally created. The missing footage of Greed is considered one of the greatest losses in American film history. Historians estimate that more than half of the material shot for the film no longer exists. The story of Greed reflects broader patterns in silent-era cinema. Long before preservation standards were established, films were treated as temporary commodities. Once theatrical demand ended, economic value determined survival. Greed's fate was not unique, but its scale was exceptional. Few directors attempted a project of such length and intensity within the commercial studio framework. The film's final sequence, set in Death Valley, remains one of the most celebrated endings in silent cinema. Even in its shortened form, it conveys stark visual power and thematic closure. This surviving strength suggests what the longer cut might have achieved. Modern audiences can only speculate about the full impact of the 9-hour version. Without the original footage, the experience of von Stroheim's complete vision is permanently inaccessible. Greed stands as both a surviving classic and a destroyed epic. It demonstrates how cinema can be diminished not by accident, but by structured editorial intervention. Unless unknown materials are discovered, the original 9-hour cut of Greed will never be seen. What remains is a powerful fragment of a larger work that once existed in full. The destruction of Greed's original form remains one of the clearest examples of how artistic ambition collided with the realities of early Hollywood production.